One of the problems with this slightly simplistic tribal approach to debate is that people assume that if somebody is wrong, they're wrong about everything, and that simply isn't true. And yesterday or the day before, I forget when, one day is merging into another, Boris Johnson gave a rousing speech to the Conservatives, a very well staged. And on the way, I've just come back from the dentist and from voting. I was quite determined not to vote, and in the end, I had a conversation with someone in another country who shamed me into going off and voting, and I was going to spoil my ballot paper or soil my ballot paper. I'm not quite sure which is the correct term. And I didn't do that. I voted, and I I think I was probably under the spell of having been in the dentist's and having spent an hour with my mouth open. But I think it is, we've waited so long to get a vote. We fought so hard for the vote. I think it's foolish not to use it. But I can understand entirely why a lot of people feel that they should stay at home today. And I think those people will determine the size of the Conservative failure. And with good reason. With good reason. Because the Conservatives have behaved appallingly. As for Johnson, and this is really what I wanted to say, Johnson's speech, as detailed in here, Johnson's speech included a strong critique of Nigel Farage. That doesn't make Johnson right, that I agree with everything he says. He accused Farage of being a Kremlin crawler, of parroting Vladimir Putin's lies. His remarks suggest that Farage's praise of Putin's governance is not only misguided but also dangerous, especially given Putin's authoritarian tactics, including the suppression of free speech and his aggression in Ukraine. They say Putin's a good operator. That's an expression that I've heard a number of times from Reform UK. Runs a tight ship. And if that's what they mean by a man who shoots journalists and poisons his opponents and murders thousands of innocent Ukrainian civilians, I say shame on them. Absolutely. It's beautifully phrased. Beautifully phrased. Johnson's argument is that admiring a regime that undermines democratic values and commits severe human rights abuses is reprehensible and incompatible with the values of a democratic society. And he is right. And Farage is wrong. And when you know people by their fruits, to be a bit biblical, you know them by their fruits. You know people because of the ephemeral things that they toss off. And Farage tosses off this, he tosses off that, and he doesn't realise how much damage he's doing with these tossed off words and tossed off phrases, these rhetorical flourishes. Johnson does the same thing, by the way, but it doesn't mean that they're both universally wrong in everything that they say. And that's the important thing to grasp. You may not like somebody, but you listen to them because even the devil speaks the truth. As for the journalists killed and imprisoned and exiled under Putin's regime, I can think of 4 people. Maybe you can think of others. I can think of 4 journalists whom he killed. Anna Politkovskaya, Natalia Estimirova, Boris Nemtsov, Anastasia Baburova. How many people imprisoned? Well, of course, Alexei Navalny, but maybe he's one of those who is killed. But Ivan Safronov, Alexander Sokolov, Igor Rudnikov, who's a journalist and newspaper editor detained on trumped-up extortion charges. People exiled, journalists exiled, like Arkady Babchenko, a war correspondent who fled Russia fearing for his life. Yevgenia Albats, a journalist who left Russia in 2022. Oleg Kashin, a investigative journalist who survived a brutal attack and ultimately left Russia. I think the list could go on, and I'm sure you can add people to it. But Boris Johnson is right. You can't praise Putin when that list could be extended. I've just spoken off the top of my head, and it's shocking that a dead man in a fridge, can have so much authority, and by now Putin really should have abandoned his viciousness and should be preparing for his next life as compost. But Putin has aspirations and arrogant ambitions that exceed even Farage's. But there we are.